Underdog launched a new $7 entry tournament called the Poodle, and I couldn't resist jumping into the draft lobby. I'll talk through how I think some of the strategy differs from Ball Mania 4 as well as the puppies, and why I think this is a great tournament for beginners. This is another edition of Best Ball in 15 on the Climb. All right, jumping in a Poodle draft here, $7 entry fee, 20 entry max. It's not going to take long for this thing to fill, but did want to talk through some of the structure differences real quick. Still 2 out of 12 make it out of the regular season, but then the playoff advanced structure is much softer than some of the other Underdog tournaments. So week 15 is 2 out of 10. Week 16 is 1 out of 6, and then it's 134 teams in the finals. Compare that to Ball Mania, which is 1 out of 16 advance, 1 out of 16 advance, and then you're in a 400-team final. So I think that kind of lends itself to beginners. It gives you a better chance of having a team to sweat as you go through the playoff weeks. And I do think it impacts the strategy a little bit as well, which I'll talk through throughout this video. In terms of the draft here, I started off with A.J. Brown, was deciding between Hurts or Garrett Wilson. Ultimately went with Garrett Wilson because he fell a little bit past ADP, and I thought it would be a more unique start than the chalk A.J. Brown, Jalen Hurts. So that's why I went that route. Getting back to the structure of the Poodle a little bit here, just looking at how the percentages play out, assuming you get a team through the regular season in Ball Mania, that team still only has a 0.5% chance of making it to the finals. Whereas if you get a team through the regular season in the Poodle, you've got a 3% chance of reaching the final. So that's orders of magnitude larger than what you get from Ball Mania. So it really is more significant to make it out of the regular season in the Poodle, I think. And I think that softer advance rate in the playoffs kind of weakens the emphasis on week 15 and week 16, which in a previous video, I talked about why I think those weeks do matter for Ball Mania 4. So in terms of my lineup here, I got lucky with Ramondre falling 3 spots past ADP. He's kind of a tier break for me, so was very happy to get Ramondre there. Then I was deciding between Christian Watson or Mike Williams. They're really a toss-up between those two players for me, but I went Mike Williams because sometimes you can get lucky and Herbert falls a couple spots in the 5th round, and also just because I'm excited to see what Kellen Moore can do with that offense, and I think there's a chance that they really take a step forward. Some other notes on the Poodle: the payout structure is 30,000 to first, 10 or 1,000 to 10th. So not quite as steep as some of the other payout structures, but still top heavy. And if you do make the finals, the base payout for making the finals is $150. So overall, pretty happy with that payout structure. And this draft here, I got lucky and Herbert did fall to me. So I got a Charger stack going here. Pretty happy with the start in this one. In general, I like taking Ayuk or Tyler Lockett in the 6th round, but Pittman's a guy I'm not totally in on, but almost a full round past ADP here. He felt like a really nice value pick. Some weird stuff going on in this draft. We had Christian Kirk go off the board early 4th. Somebody setting up a heavy Jacksonville stack there. Also have Tua just now going late 6th. That's almost 20 spots ahead of his ADP. Other things too, we had Bijan go at the 3 with somebody setting up a Baltimore stack. So at least getting unique there, but they also took Addison around ahead of ADP and Zay Flowers around ahead of ADP. So when you get in these rooms, personally, I like getting in these rooms where people are doing weird stuff because it allows me to get some good values here. So deciding between Treylon Burks and Deontay Johnson, again, two guys who I'm pretty even on. I break the tie to Deontay Johnson just because it does open up the Kenny Pickett stack later in the draft, whereas I'm not really comfortable taking either of the Titans quarterbacks at this point. And I was planning on taking Quentin Johnston to get the Chargers double stack, but Treylon made it all the way around the turn back to me, so I get him more than a full round past ADP. Felt really, really good about that. So my team through 8 rounds was Justin Herbert, Ramondre Stevenson, and then A.J. Brown, Garrett Wilson, Mike Williams, Michael Pittman, Deontay Johnson, and Treylon Burks. With 6 wide receivers through 8 rounds, I was feeling pretty good about this wide receiver core, and it allowed me to back off on wide receiver moving forward in this draft and focus on some of the other positions, like catching up at running back and taking 3 tight ends, which I think is more viable in a tournament like the Poodle, where the playoff advance rates are a little bit softer. So I was at this point here where I could have taken Rashad Bateman. He's a kind of the last call for the good wide receivers, in my opinion. And I could have tried to push Aaron Rodgers around the turn, but given how strong of a start I had at wide receiver, I felt okay taking Rodgers, getting that stack with Garrett Wilson, and being done at quarterback so I could focus on running back and tight end for the rest of this draft. I take Brian Robinson. He's not necessarily one of my favorite targets at this point. I like Gibson, 20 picks later, but Brian Robinson had fallen almost 10 spots past ADP. So I went ahead and scooped him, continued to build that ADP value in this lineup. I mentioned the 3 tight end builds. Pat Kerrane has written about elite tight end and how he thinks it is a pretty good way to supercharge your lineups for the playoffs during a contest like Ball Mania, where the advance rate is really steep, and getting something like a 20-point performance out of your tight end can really help you get through that 1 of 16 advance rates. But you're giving up some regular season advance rate there. When you are taking the elite tight end, the advance rate is a little bit lower. However, I think in a tournament like the Poodle, where the playoff weeks are softer and getting out of the regular season is more valuable, I think I'm going to be looking to do more 3 tight end builds in this contest, get through the regular season, and then just hope that one of those guys does enough to help me get through those playoff weeks, where you don't really have to be perfect in the playoff weeks to survive. You just have to be good enough. So getting back to this lineup here, I took Eli Mitchell. He's one of my favorite late RB targets. I also grabbed Roschon Johnson. Was hoping to get Kendre Miller in the 12th, but he ultimately came off the board before my pick. So getting Roschon, a guy who's in an offense where we expect the RBs to be efficient. He's also a rookie, which I like to target with my later RB picks. So that felt good. And then for tight end, we get Greg Dulcich here, who does offer some week 17 correlation with the Chargers stack. So still feeling pretty good about this lineup, still focused primarily on running backs and tight ends at this point in the draft. So I was deciding between Tyler Algier or a tight end like Jawan Johnson. Ultimately, I took Algier. He, again, was 10 spots past ADP here, whereas Everett would have been a bit of a reach, and there was a chance that Everett could have made it back to me. Unfortunately, Everett went not long after my 14th round pick. So at this point, my attention was turned to guys like Dawson Knox, Tank Bigsby, and Jeff Wilson to tack on to my roster at this point. So I really didn't expect Sam Laporta to make it back to me at this point. So even though Dawson Knox could have given me some week 17 correlation with Ramondre Stevenson, I went Laporta. He's a guy I really like, and to get him falling past ADP was too good to pass up here. And for my final tight end, I had already planned out getting Tyler Conklin. So even if Dawson Knox was there for my 16th round pick, I think I would have gone a different route. But getting Chuba here to round out my running back room felt like a very nice way to finish that off. So my team through 16 rounds was Justin Herbert, Aaron Rodgers, Ramondre Stevenson, Brian Robinson, Eli Mitchell, Roshan Johnson, Tyler Algier, Chuba Hubbard. And then wide receivers, A.J. Brown, Garrett Wilson, Mike Williams, Michael Pittman, Deontay Johnson, Treylon Burks. And at tight end, we're sitting at Greg Dulcich and Sam Laporta with plans to add Tyler Conklin as well. I also needed a bring back for my Jets stack. So for my final pick, I was planning on a Cleveland wide receiver. So as you can see here, loaded up on wide receiver early and then hit the brakes, rounded out my other position groups, and then came back and got a wide receiver at the end of this draft. So I don't do many 7 wide receiver builds, but some research from guys like Hayden Winks and Neil Farley have shown that 7 wide receivers, when you do load up on wide receiver early, is a pretty strong build. I think it has they showed it has closer to a 20% advance rate versus the baseline advance rate of 16%. So got a lot of value in this draft. Got a hero RB room that I really like. Got a 3 tight end build that I like more for the Poodle than some of the other Underdog contests. So I was really, really happy with this team. We'll go through a full lineup breakdown here in just a second. All right, we got the full lineup here. A 2-6-7-3 build. Really happy with how this team turned out. We also got the real-time ADP values there in the right column. So first and foremost, with any lineup, obviously we want our QBs stacked. Got that covered here. In terms of week 17 game stacks, they're a little soft, but we did get both quarterbacks stacked. Herbert and Mike Williams with Greg Dulcich, and then the Jets players with Cedric Tillman as our final pick. In terms of roster construction, I really love the way this build turned out. Classic hero RB build, and the 3 tight ends, as I talked about during the draft, I think is actually a more viable strategy for a contest like the Poodle, where the playoff advance rates are a little bit softer. Also gave this lineup a 5 out of 5 for ADP value. Tons of value across the board, and really no true reaches there. I maybe could have tried to push Aaron Rodgers an extra round, but given where I was at with my wide receiver core, I didn't think it was necessary. But we've got 5 players, a half or almost a full round past ADP. Some really strong wide receiver values there with Pittman 10 spots past ADP and Burks almost 14 spots past ADP. So really, really nice job of scooping value with this lineup. Finally, the playoff stacks, obviously not worried about weeks 15 and 16 really at all, given the soft advance rates. But I did throw in the week 17 stacks here. Still want to have some correlation for that 100-team final. The skinny stacks here are pretty weak, generally not looking to correlate a running back with another running back, but they're there. So that's how this team turned out. Overall, I think it's a really, really strong lineup for this contest. So a couple housekeeping notes before we wrap up. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. It helps the show out, helps me know that the content that we're doing is being enjoyed. Also, you can be entered to win $25 if you give us a follow on Twitter or subscribe right here on YouTube. And then next week, we will be doing an episode midweek looking at our early exposures and kind of how we're going to use that going forward. And we'll continue to do additional best ball in 15 videos. So thanks for watching. I'm Alex, and this has been another episode of The Climb.